Hello, this is Sondra Oster, Baras, bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Vayetze, and it begins with the flight of Jacob leaving because his brother Esau is trying to kill him, and he makes his way to the house of Laban, which is his mother Rebekah's brother, someone who we've met already a couple of weeks ago. And when we discuss Laban in the Torah portion of Vayetze, we refer to some of the ways that he is described in a way sort of innocently in that encounter, but gives us a hint as to what his real character is. And of course, his true character comes to light much more in this Torah portion when we see, first of all, how he tricks Jacob. Jacob falls in love with Rachel. Rachel falls in love with him. They want to get married. And he tells him, work for 7 years, and then I'll give you Rachel. And after he's worked for 7 years, he ends up getting Leah. And of course, afterwards, he also gets Rachel. But in this way, Jacob has manipulated him to get him to work for him for 14 solid years. Okay? When this certainly was never his intention. But at some point, we see that Jacob realizes he's just working, he's not getting wages, he's not getting anything out of this, and he does a deal with Laban, and he basically says, let's separate the sheep and the goats, and he does this in such a way that he takes goats that have one kind of color or whatever, and he makes a deal with them that those that come out from these sheep that are a different color are his, and the other ones belong to Laban, and he does it in such a way that it would be that Laban would assume he's going to be the beneficiary out of all of this, because Jacob's plan seems crazy, but then Jacob puts these sticks in front of the troughs that are spotted to ensure that he will indeed get the spotted sheep more than the solid ones. And anyway, this is all part of a plan. And at the end of the day, Jacob, through this plan, and of course this is all God's blessing, because I don't think sticks are what turn sheep into whatever color they end up coming out, but clearly this is God's way of blessing Jacob, rewarding him for taking the initiative, but blessing him, and he ends up with a great flock. But then what happens? He realizes that this we see in chapter 31. All of a sudden, Jacob realizes, Laban is not happy with him. Okay, and he realizes that it is time to leave. At the very same time, God appears to Abraham and says, time to go home. Go home, go back to the land of your fathers and your birthplace, and I will be with you. So now he has to go to his wives, and he has to convince his wives to leave with him. Now that means leaving their family and leaving everything they know. I mean, don't forget, Rachel and Leah have never been in Canaan. They've never met Isaac or Rebekah. They don't know anything about what it's like to live there. And he's saying to them, okay, we need to leave. And it's very interesting. He begins his whole talk, Jacob, to convince his wives by saying, I worked so hard. You know how hard I worked. I tried very hard to accommodate your father. And then it says, but, and this is in chapter 31, verse 7, he says, but your father played with me. He kept changing my salary 10 times. Okay, but it's only thanks to God. He says, but it's God that didn't enable him to succeed in actually, harming me. And this is, and we have a whole description here of then what happens. And then, of course, he tells them that it is God himself who's appeared to him until it's time to go home. And then we get the response of Rachel and Leah. Now, if you may recall, when we discussed Laban and how he treated Rebekah, we had a sense even then that Laban didn't really care very much about his sister. It was much more about, can we get more gold out of this Eliezer fella? And here we have Rachel and Leah both expressing this very same sense that what they get from their father. Okay? And they said to him, we have no interest in our father's house, or we have no territory there. He says, and this is in verse 15, he says, he treated us as strangers. These are his daughters. And the daughters themselves are saying, he treated us as strangers. He sold us. He consumed everything that should rightfully have belonged to us. So basically what they're saying is, every time Laban tricks Jacob is not just some employee from somewhere. Jacob is his son-in-law. Every time he is trying to take money, property, whatever, away from Jacob, in effect, he's trying to take it away from his very own daughters and grandchildren. And his daughters understand that. And so they see this whole thing not just as a nasty way to treat a worker, not honorable, manipulative, conniving, but they also see it for what it really and truly is. He doesn't care about his own family, his daughters. He treated us as if we were strangers. He treated us as if we were property. He wanted to trade us. He wants to sell us. And at that point, it becomes very clear they're going to leave. They wait for an opportunity when Laban is off somewhere else shearing the sheep, and then they leave. But just before they do that, Rachel does something that's quite interesting, okay? She takes his something, okay? In Hebrew, it's called terafim. It is some kind of an idol. It is not clear what exactly this idol is about. Some people believe that it's some kind of, magic thing that somebody will use to try to determine what's going on. Like that Laban might have used this in order to determine where Jacob went. Okay, but I don't know that that's really true, because it was very clear where Jacob went. Laban, even without these things, had no trouble finding Jacob. And Jacob leaving, with all due respect, he's leaving with 11 children, 4 wives, lots and lots of sheep, and I'm sure all kinds of, helpers and servants or whatever to help him out. This is a big camp, okay? So he doesn't need these things to tell him. But it's probably some kind of a holy object to Jacob, a pagan holy object, and she takes them, okay? And then you have Laban actually running after Jacob, catching up with him. Just before he catches up with him, God warns Laban, you better not harm, Jacob, and he takes heed. And so he comes to Jacob, and he's very angry with him, but he says, I could really kill you, I could hurt you right now, but God warned me not to, so I'm not going to, okay? But he's very angry and expresses this anger to him, and they then make an agreement that, this I won't bother you, and you won't bother me, and we have here a kind of a monument that says this is the border, you're over there, I'm over here, we won't bother each other. But through the course of this, he comes and he talks about what is he angry about? He says, you cheated me, you left without telling me, okay? And you took my daughters as if they were captors. Now we know that that's not true, okay? But he's being manipulative. Oh, my lovely daughters that I love so much. But it's great. We just learned, he didn't love them so much. So he's being very manipulative in the way he says that. But at the end of the whole thing, he talks about, you didn't give me a chance to kiss my daughters. Oh, 1 second. So they're captives, or he's just upset because he didn't get a chance to kiss them goodbye. He's kind of pulling out all the stops here to see what would work in making him feel bad, okay? And he keeps going on and on and on. And then he says, but also, at the very end of his statement, and by the way, why did you steal my gods? Why did you steal my idols? Okay, so it's very interesting. This becomes part of it. And of course, Jacob, that's the only part he responds to. He says, look, they came with me, whatever. Now, he doesn't know that Rachel has stolen them. And he says to Laban, go search for them. Well, Rachel hides them. And so Laban doesn't find them. And so that's the end of the story, supposedly. Okay? But the question is, what's going on here? Why did she take them? Okay? Later on, we learn that just as he's crossed, Jacob then continues, he crosses, he encounters Esau and all that kind of stuff. And then he is, after the whole situation in Shechem, in chapter 35, he's about to now continue on his way. He's going to go to Bethel, and from there he's going to go down to Hebron. And just at that point, you get the sense now as they're about to go up to Bethel, they're really departing from Canaanite Shechem, and they're going into Bethel, which is that place which is holy, the same place where Jacob had that first vision from God. as he was leaving the land, he's going to go back to there. It's kind of a way of saying, okay, now I'm coming back to the Canaan of my forefathers. I'm coming back to the land that God promised to us. At that point, he says to everybody, okay, you need to purify yourselves, change your clothes. And he says, and bring me all the foreign gods that you have. And you're thinking, foreign gods? What foreign gods? What do they have? And then you remember, they have those idols that Rachel stole from Laban. But he also says at the same time, he says, and bring me your bracelets or your earrings or whatever, your nose rings. Well, what does one thing have to do to another? So first of all, I think when he's talking about why does he put them together, it's very possible that the gold that they have is gold that had some connection with pagan. Maybe they took pagan gods that were made of gold and melted them down and turned them into nose rings. Okay? So there's nothing pagan about a nose ring, because even if it might have been once, part of an idol, it's certainly not something he's worshiping now. But Jacob wants to be very clear. We don't want any of this stuff near us. Even if we used it only for jewelry. Even if Rachel took this just to take it from her father. Why? Maybe she doesn't want him worshiping these idols. It bothers her as a God-fearing woman that he should have these idols. He says, no, we don't want to turn them into gold. We don't want to do anything with them. We want to bury them. We want to get rid of them. And that, of course, is what happens. And so you have a sense there that Jacob is cleansing himself and his whole family from any Labanite influences that they might have as they come back in and settle in the land. And isn't that something that we need to do ourselves as we come back to the land of Israel? Purge ourselves from any Labanite issues or influences that might have stuck to us along the way as we come back in to the land of Israel. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that film. And we have lots more film content and emails and articles that I'm sure you will enjoy as well. Check out our website at CFOIC.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that right from the homepage. I know you will really enjoy the content that will land in your inbox on a regular basis. Hope to see you soon.